find out if you're ready for love. Here's your marvelous host, Nikki Lee.
Hello, and welcome to Ready for Love Radio. This is your host and love coach, Nikki Lee. Listeners, I have got a fascinating guest with me today, and she has done and does, every time I look at her website, I find something else that she does. I just, unbelievable. And the list, I'm telling you, as we go through this, y'all are going to go, another thing? So it just, I don't know how we're going to fit this in an hour. I really, really don't, but we're going to try. We are going to try to hit on as much stuff as possible, but I am really going to suggest that after the show, not during, after the show, you go check out our website just to find all the stuff that I missed getting to tell you about. And I'm also going to warn you that as hard as I try, I'm probably going to get her name wrong, and she's going to straighten me out and clear it up for you. But I will get the last name right. So I would like to introduce you to Ambika Devi. How about I screw it up?
That was pretty good, Nikki. It's you weren't trusting yourself, but you hit it. It's Ambika Devi.
Okay. That was closer than I was earlier. So it's great to have you with us.
Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here. I'm excited. I'm really, really happy to be sharing as many things as we can fit into this time together for you. Yep. So where would you like to go first?
I try to cram a lot into an hour. Well, and as soon as we finish, the replay posts on my website and goes out to the podcast directory, so it's right there to listen again. So, I love your bio. So let me give that to them first, just to kind of give them a little bit of a introduction. She says she's on a peace-building mission to help people realize their true nature so they can step out of the churning river of thoughts and activity on the mind, stop wearing insane schedules like badges of honor, and begin their days reinforced with the calmness of a meditation practice brings. With 45 years of experience, 13,000 plus hours of study, and having taught over 19,000 people the art of meditation, she gives you 5 clear steps that lead you directly into a deep state of meditation. As your coach, she places you precisely on your path using tools from her multiple degrees in the fields of study, which include a master's in yoga and meditation and bachelor's degree in astrology and fine arts. As an international bestseller and award-winning author, she helps inspire your creativity. As your coach, she guides you to bring your vision of your book into reality. As a speaker, she motivates and inspires audiences to feel empowered to transform themselves and help others. She's appeared on the Learning Channel, syndicated in public radio, and in periodicals as a relationship and communication expert, and taught holistic health at the university level for 21 years. Whew! I'm tired.
I know it's time to retire, maybe. No. You know why, Nikki? Because when we stop learning, we stop living. That's really something I live by.
Well, and we stop growing. We stop growing as a person.
And then, for me, it's creativity, obviously.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And it's if I wasn't learning every day, I'm bored. I've been in the hospital for a month recuperating from major things, and I insist somebody bring me my computer. I'm like, no. I gotta be doing something. I can't just be here because that just bores me out of my mind. It's like I'm not just gonna watch TV all day. No, So I get it. I completely get it.
Well, yes. My newest book was the Pandemic Lockdown Project.
See, there you go.
Exactly. Well, I'm not going to sit around and pour me. I'm going to make something of it. And so I decided I would, of course I left the gym. The gym's closed down, right? And it's not like I was a big gym rat, but I did utilize it, especially when it's super, super hot here. I live in a subtropical zone. And,
Yep.
I had to figure out, like, I think we all had to figure out, I don't know about you, but to me, it kind of felt like living in a space station. I guess I've watched a lot of sci-fi and read a lot of sci-fi. But so I got a mini trampoline and a chin bar, and I already had a yoga space, but
Right.
I just kind of augmented things, even, like a balance board. And then just recently got back into roller skating. So,
Oh, good.
I mean, it's always something with me. That's what my mom would have told you if she was still here.
Well, it's amazing the number of people, and I have a lot of friends that are musicians, and it's amazing the people that put out new albums while they were locked down. Mm-hmm. Because they had time. They weren't on the road. They weren't traveling. They didn't have gigs all over the place. And they had time to put out a new album. And the number of authors that wrote a new book because they had time, Mm-hmm. So I get it. I get it. I was working on a book.
Awesome.
But we had the time. We were inside, couldn't go anywhere. And, I mean, I know a lot of people binge watch Netflix the whole time, but it was a great time.
I think we all had an opportunity to do that as well. But I live alone, so I was really processing everything by myself. And
right.
My mother had just died in 2019. I was just coming back. I came back in late February through Miami airport. So that was the very beginning of seeing it out there in public. And I was just kind of coming out of my cocoon. I remember coming back from that trip and stepping inside my house, and it was the first time I didn't feel sad or burst out into tears because of just being here and her not, and I wrote a lot of poetry and just made art, and even because I do a lot of photography too, and I think any artist really, that photography and journaling are the two things that help us, and that's our ongoing expression. And then what do you do when you're single and the world locks down? You hang out on dating apps a bit, right? So I had a little stint of that before the lockdown, and then I was in a writing retreat because a friend of mine, who is also my editor, Rusty LaHaye, she had this vision when we met a couple years before in 2018. We were both over in Estonia partaking in Mind Valley University. And she had a vision of retreats. I had already been a retreat leader and guide, and we thought, well, let's do this. I'm a writer. She wanted to do writing retreats. I said, I'll handle the travel bit through agents that I've worked with and my contacts, and let's get this going online, because you live all the way out in the Pacific time zone and I'm in the Eastern time zone. So we started virtual retreats, and we've been doing these bi-monthly. She leads them, and then this past month of July 2022, we actually met almost every weekend with a different one. We just did an erotic writing workshop, which was really fun. And I got a little bit erotic in my newest book, that even though, look, this book is about love of all sorts. It's called Cupid is a Bastard. And, yes, it was triggered by a dating app incident. But then it was also, I started thinking about love. I started writing a short story, and sometimes when I'm writing something, right away a title comes to me. So, and it makes it a heck of a lot easier to find it in my file system, which I think every writer needs to develop. This is something, if you have a way to capture your stuff and then be able to find it later, you'll be surprised how much of it you'll go back and use somewhere. Don't throw that away. Don't let those thoughts go away. Capture it somehow.
Oh, no, I've got a huge file with book ideas.
Yeah, all different kinds. I label them poetry, flash fiction, short story, prose, songs, all of it, and
Oh, yeah.
you never know where it'll show up. I mean, in Cupid is a Bastard, I actually used a song lyric that I had never used anywhere. And
Yeah.
so I was working through dealing with death, which, mind you, people, I have dealt with a lot in my lifetime, even to the point where you mentioned music earlier. Don't faint. Please, Nikki, don't faint. But I worked as a professional musician for years. And, you okay? And we did a lot of weddings as a duo, as a trio. And I also, because I'm a vocalist and percussionist, I also played in big bands. One day I did 3 weddings. And yes, in one day, 3 different types,
Okay.
a breakfast brunch, a cocktail evening, breakfast brunch with a trio, cocktail evening with a duo, and then I went to play with a big band after that at a fancy 5-star hotel. And when I got home, I said to my guitar playing music partner, Brent, I just want to work at not a wedding anymore, but a funeral, because people are so much more peaceful, kind, and grateful. And I had, unfortunately at friends, well, maybe fortunately at friends' funerals, been the one orating,
Right.
and conducting it. And I had become a minister, so I could even marry people, which I had been counseling people as an astrologer for years,
Right.
and really getting people clear on the difference between marriage and a love agreement, because it's vastly different. Marriage being financial. We see this when people get divorced. They're not fighting
Right.
over love. They're not saying, give me back my love, right? They're saying, give me back my property, or give me half of yours.
That's
And
it.
and so I said to Brent that night after 3 weddings, I'd rather be at a funeral. And then I read Love in the Time of Cholera. Have you read that or seen the movie? Both.
I have not.
Excellent. Oh, it won a prize. I mean, it's a world famous piece of literature. And in it is a funeral singer, and I guess I got inspired. And just recently, I connected with a boat captain. I live only 5 miles from the coastline in Florida. And
Okay.
she brought up funerals at sea. I said, no way. So I went home
Oh,
and brushed up on my sea shanties, because there's some beautiful shanty pieces for funerals at sea.
oh,
And
definitely.
and I said, I am ready. Take me, Captain. But back to I think it's just a continuation of the processing of death. But also, I teach people so often, when they're going through grief, that it's the same window as birth. And I've done baby blessings too. I mean, as a minister, I've done all kinds of things, house blessings, baby blessings, rites of passage, weddings, funerals, all of it. And I think that's what Cupid is a Bastard really is, an explosion of creativity from all those kinds of experiences, because they all produce an awareness of the gratitude of life and love, universal love, being able to love self. This is such a hot topic, so many younger people I see online just struggling and working to love themselves. And I wanted to be able to convey love at all different levels, from hot erotic writing without getting vulgar,
Right.
to love of my mother and my gratitude for my family. And even some of the, look, our family is always smooth and comfy. They can get
No.
pretty prickly and difficult, right? And just processing it all. And it was, a lot of it was inspired by these writing stay treats, Rusty calls them, online, and prompts, writing from prompts, which is taking a sentence or a paragraph or several from a piece of writing, and letting it inspire you to write something.
Definitely. I'm putting together some journals with that, with different themes, with prompts. So definitely. Well, it definitely gets the creative juices going, you know. So gets you out of your comfort zone and very interesting.
And I had put a bunch of favorite quotes throughout the book. It's really put together like no other book I've ever seen. It is a step into my journal, but somehow we neatened it up and made it make sense.
There you go. There you go. I know. I always like to lay out my books and do something unusual to put like my stamp on it. You know. So, understand completely. It's like it's gotta have my touch on it. So I think one of the things with love too is helping people to understand that there's so many different types of love. You know, there's not just you can love a person or love people in so many different ways. You know.
Yes.
You know, and just because you have a feeling of love for a person doesn't mean it has to be a romantic love. It doesn't have to be a gushy, ooh, we have to be together forever kind of love. You know, there are other feelings of love you can have for people. You know, because people are like, oh, I love you. You know, we have to be together forever. It's like there are so many other loves you can have in your life that you can cherish and feel awesome about, but that it doesn't have to be that, you know. It's like people think that's the only thing there can be. It's like, no, you know. But it's, I don't know. There's so many ways to expand people's thinking and help them to end up being so much happier in their relationships. And that's even something. Relationships don't have to be just about romantic, intimate relationships. There's so many types of relationships, you know. But, you know, there's friends, there's family, there's business, there's romance, you know. There's close friends, there's, you know, associates, there's all these things. But lots to learn about all that kind of stuff.
Most definitely.
So you're into a million different things. How? And I use that number conservatively. How did this journey even start? How did you start to get into? Because it's not your common set of things. I mean, come on, you know, which I think is cool. I mean, I like unusual things, and I'm into a bunch of unusual things. How did this happen? Of course, you don't have.
Are there any in particular you're wondering how they connect? I mean, I had a mother who loved, both parents loved the arts. My dad loved horses. When he was a little kid, he roller skated. I'm sure I got that from him. He was really into dance and music. He played the violin. And so my whole family was into music. There was always music playing in the house. I was taken to the ballet and theater, great restaurants. I mean, my senses were turned on to a lot of amazing things. I had the unbelievable fortune of a great education with incredibly creative teachers. And I went to schools that supported the arts. So I wasn't limited. That is something I think that really put input. As far as holistic health, I think I know that was because of my own health, and conventional medicine wasn't working for me at a very early age. And I asked my mother to find an alternative, and then we became really interested in holistic health collectively. So that was supported. Travel. My parents took me out of school every year. My dad would negotiate with the head of the school, the principal or headmaster, whatever type of school I was in, and take me traveling. He would take our family traveling somewhere different. And sometimes we wouldn't have reservations. We would simply show up and figure it out. He was an adventurer like that. Don't get me wrong, he loved home. He loved coming back home. But that was also an incredible thing because my parents were pacifists, and they supported peace. And my dad's motto was shoot pictures, shoot cameras, not guns. And so this is how I was raised. That had a big influence on my foundation. And being able to go out and explore, I've traveled more on my own as a solo traveler than I have with groups. And I guess that's what led me to leading groups, being that kind of explorer, but also understanding what people need when they're traveling. And as a musician, I worked at resorts. So I learned customer service and how to care for a guest. So I just keep putting myself in these different scenarios, learning from them, experiencing them, and then turning around and sharing with others, and that makes me happy.
It's interesting. I hadn't looked at it this way, but when I was growing up, we did a lot of traveling, and the deal was, give us weeks of our homework. We're gonna travel, and that worked out well. And I'd just take all my books with me, and we'd go. I remember many times sitting on lawn chairs with the waves coming in, doing my homework on the beach, which that's the way to do the homework, definitely beats doing it in the schoolroom. And a lot of consuming creative things, we always had music on when I was at home, and all varieties of music. I've got, fantastic background in music, but consuming it, but not doing things creatively. That was never a thing, especially with my dad. Mom was more of a craftsy kind of person, but Dad never was. And so because I had a dream to be a writer when I was just little, and that was never encouraged. Now, a couple of my teachers knew I wanted to, starting in like second grade. And so actually, the day my first book came in, and I opened up the box, and I, held my print book in my hand for the first time, I actually tracked her down and found my second grade teacher. Nice. And trust me, that was many years later, and she actually cried. She says, "I knew you'd do it. I knew you would."
Oh, that's so beautiful.
I know. That was a very cool moment. It took some work, but I found her. I did.
Wow.
So, like I said, so consuming the creative things and the arts was a priority for my dad and my mom, but actually being the creative person myself was not something they encouraged me to do. So I just hadn't thought about the difference in the two things on what was being encouraged in my household. Interesting. I love how doing interviews makes me look back and think about these things.
That's great.
But that's okay because I got to do it anyway.
So when you open up my newest book, you'll see how I integrated visual art and photography with several different styles of writing. A short story that weaves through the whole thing, which I conceived how this would all go before we started editing the copy, but definitely baffled my editor at first. And then she got the hang of it once she saw, hey, this is really working. And it's really, I think it's a real good inspiration for writers who maybe have fantastic journals and don't know what to do with it. It is a way to put it out there and share it with people if you want to, because there's some good stuff in everybody's journal that deserves to be shared.
Well, I was watching an interview the other day Oprah did with Matthew McConaughey, and he said that he decided he was going to finally he'd been writing journals for like 30 years, And he had them all in a big box, along with a bunch of stuff he'd just thrown in there over the years. And he said he took them, he went out in the middle of nowhere, and he took the boxes, and he's taken all the stuff out, and he's like, okay, what have you got to tell me? You know, and deciding what he could do with them, and if there was a book there. It's like, you know, is there something here for me to share? You know, so as the same kind of thing you're saying, you know, have you kept these thoughts in journals, and is there something there to share? And the thing is, even if you don't publish it, is there something in there to share for yourself that you need to see again, you know? You never know. You never know.
Occasionally I do that. Usually when I'm looking for something, but I'll pull out a bunch of journals and sit on the floor for hours going through them. A couple times I've even taken old dream journals on vacations with me as reading material, just to read page after page of dreams I've had. That's pretty wild too.
It is. It's interesting. Well, I even do that with some of the like short stories and things that I've written, you know, that I just kind of started on a whim and never did anything with. Most everything I've written, I've published, but I've got a couple little things that I just kind of had a thought and wrote like a page or two or something, and I'll stumble across it on my hard drive, and I'm like, what in the world is this? You know? And it's like, oh, wow. You know? But yeah, it's kind of cool to go back and look at that stuff. And I used to do Art of the Something with what's her face Cameron, and morning pages. I did a lot of that when I first started writing.
The Artist's Way.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, and that was interesting to go back and look through those and kind of see what I needed to just get out, you know, because it's interesting what flows out when you're doing those, you know.
Most definitely.
I think, and I'm in the process. One of the things I'm hoping to do before the end of the year is I've got a lot of templates to start creating my own journals to put up for sale in my Etsy store. So I'm working on. That's one of my upcoming projects. I just announced last week, actually, on the show. Cool. So it's those will be coming soon. But interesting stuff. So tell us a bit. What do you do about writer's block? If you're trying to write and you have writer's block, what do you do?
Lego. I'll tell you how this came about. I loved Lego as a child. Loved it. And then I went to art school, a university art school, and I came home on a vacation day to visit my folks, and my mother had given my Lego away, and I had original, 1960s Lego. Well, not original because it was originally wood. I did have plastic, but and I had friends who were getting into Lego again. This was a couple years ago, and I was writing. I had agreed to write articles for a digital magazine, an e-zine, and so I had been writing articles and having a great time, and they were loving them. And then they kind of gave me an assignment. I guess it just didn't really hit strong, and I was having kind of a block. And it happens. I mean, if I'm writing a book and I don't feel like working on it, I don't care because I'm the publisher. I have my own publishing company. I can go do something else, I can go roller skating or get into art or something else. And but this had a deadline, right? And it was getting close. Meanwhile, a friend of mine's husband, who I had befriended just because he was a Lego maniac, And I was just so into his posts on Instagram. Well, and also because he's my dear friend's husband, I wanted to get to know him also. And I just loved what he was doing. And then I engaged him as an enabler. And I said, should I do it? Should I do it? He's like, yes, yes, yes. And I was really into the Mandalorian, the spinoff from the Star Wars franchise, right? So, and I had already been nicknamed Yoda. People had already nicknamed me, and I had a website. Well, I still have it, Yogini Yoda. Yogini being a female yogi, and then Yoda, obviously Yoda. And then I, set my eyes upon the baby Yoda, whose name is Grogu, and I thought, wow. So then people started giving me baby Yoda stuff, and I saw this really cute little Mandalorian Lego set, and I thought, maybe I could get back into it. I'll try this and see if I like it. Because I hadn't done it in so long, and I knew it had come a very long way with many new shapes of blocks and bricks and things. And I saw a larger Grogu statue that you could build. And then I looked at the website, fast forward, I ended up buying the larger one. I bought the Mandalorian set and a little Lucky Cat. I like the little Japanese Lucky Cats. So I built the Lucky Cat, whoosh, 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 pretty quickly. Then I built the little Mandalorian set pretty quickly. It was tiny. And then there's the box of Grogu, the baby Yoda. And I'm stuck like heck on this writing project, and I had 3 days to get it done. And I said, you know what? I can't sit here at my computer. I'd been rejected 3 times, had it tossed back in my lap. And so I sat down on the floor, put on Netflix, and spent the entire day building this baby Yoda statue. Got stuck on the last little bit and decided it's time for sleep. Woke up the next morning, looked at it, figured it out with a fresh mind, and then walked over to my desk, cranked out that article, sent it in, loved it, they loved it. And I thought, wait a second, what just happened? I walked away from my desk. I played with Lego. I even let myself watch Netflix all day long, and listen to music, podcasts, all different things that day. And I thought, wow, I got into a different place of my cognitive mind. I got into my creative mind. Lego, to me, is a combination of art and puzzle, right? So you're using those skills. Since then, I have done things on my own without a map, without a book, things I've designed. But I will say that it definitely took me out of it, and I have become kind of an addict. Because I love Harry Potter, and they have some really cool Harry Potter sets. And it just took me back to what I used to love. I used to love making environments, and not just out of Lego. I used to go in the woods with my friends, and we would build fairy houses out of sticks and moss and found objects in the woods. And I loved making little environments, and it just really took me back there. So that is one. And the other is a mini trampoline and roller skating. If I don't stare at a screen wondering, is another word going to pop out of my fingers, on my keyboard, or an empty journal page. It will either turn into some kind of art or movement, or even just going out in the sun and standing in the pool, or floating. I have this crazy ability. Well, yes, my pool is salt water, but I can float without a float. I can just lie back in the water, kind of like 11 in Stranger Things. Those of you who like that. Yeah, I don't need to be taught how to float. I have a weird superpower that I can float, especially in the ocean and saltwater, but I can do it in a chlorinated pool. I don't really choose to, but yeah.
Okay. Well, I tell you, it's funny you mentioned puzzles and that kind of thing. I had a aortic dissection back in 2015, and unbeknownst to me and the doctors, during the surgery, which was extremely bad, I had a stroke.
Oh, and
I was in such bad shape. When you come out of the surgery, you're in such bad shape you could barely move anyway. And because of it being open heart surgery, you can't move your upper body because the sternum needs to heal and all this. And they didn't know that I had a stroke. It was a minor stroke, but still. And so I had a lot of trouble thinking through things and forming sentences and all this sort of thing, but which was a normal part of the recovery process from the major surgery anyway, because they basically were repairing where the aorta and the heart come together. That's where one of the major parts of the problem was. And so they just didn't realize what all had happened. Well, that part of it anyway. So I'm trying to recover from all this, and my mind was just not working with me at all. And so I was trying to figure out how in the world I was going to get back to being able to function again. And we were kind of getting the physical side back, but I wasn't able to think, to do sentences. And as a writer, that's a real huge issue, right? Mm-hmm. And it's really hard to interview people when you can't put sentences together, and especially when you need to think on your feet and that kind of thing, you know. So I was here, and I was trying to recover, and I'm like, and I love playing games on my phone. I do, right? Mm-hmm. And I love the puzzle games. The Candy Crush and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I started playing those, and it was really, really, really hard when I first started. And then I noticed, though, that as I was playing those and getting better at them, I was starting to think a little bit better. And so I kept it up. And I was playing them more, and I couldn't do anything else, you know, because the doctor didn't want me doing. I couldn't lift over 5 pounds for like a couple months and all this. I mean, what can you do, right? So anyway, but that is amazing, the difference that playing those puzzle games had in helping me get my mind back to the point where I could function. So and I've had 2 more of those surgeries in the last 3 years, and cancer. So, you know, trying to recover from all that, I found that when I have problems now where the mind's just kind of not firing on all cylinders like I needed to, the puzzle games are a huge help.
Yes.
To kind of help me to get it, you know, so come on, you know, when I need a kickstart. Those are really, really helpful. So if there's anybody listening that is having those kind of issues, or even to a lesser degree, those puzzle games are a huge help to keep the mind going and get it going and all that kind of thing. So just something that I found was hugely helpful, because, like I said, it was bad. Or I'd think of a word, and it was so irritating. I'd get the first letter, or maybe the first 2 letters of the word I wanted, could not think of the right word for anything. But, which, like I said, as an author, very irritating. But anyway, so never underestimate the power of a puzzle game. It's amazing how helpful they can be. Definitely.
So that is my method for getting rid of any kind of creative blockage.
But I love Legos. Oh my goodness! I had all of my Legos, right, and Lincoln Logs and all that kind of stuff, right, and then my brother came along and they gave them all to him. I'm like, hold on, you know, and all my Matchbox cars and Tonka toys. I'm like, those are mine.
Well, that's a good lesson in letting go and impermanence. That's a very, you know, it's a good lesson, I think, for a child to. But I think there are ways you can present it so that they can take it in a little bit more readily.
Well, I tell you what. I tell you the big problem. Sharing wasn't the problem. The problem was he chewed all the tires.
I don't even know what to say about that, Nikki.
See, I thought you might see the problem there, though. Okay, so once you get the creativity flowing, because that can be difficult, how do you keep the creativity flowing?
I have to say I have never had an issue with that. I guess I took the motto of my astrological sun sign very seriously. I'm also an astrologer, but I became very interested in astrology at an early age and started studying it on my own as a preteen and became pretty adept at it by 12. And then later went on to study it and graduate from a university with it. But I'm a Scorpio, my sun sign. I'm born in October, and the end of October is Scorpio. And the motto of Scorpio is I create. I really took that seriously.
I was born in November, and I'm a Scorpio, too.
Well, there you go. There you go. Yes. And I like to, as I look at my stack of books that I've written, because Cupid is a Bastard is my 6th book, I see the unfolding and also how I used visual art right from the start. In my first book, Lilith, which is a novel, I was very adamant with my publisher because I was with a publisher at the time, right, about having particular things that section headings, because I broke it into sections as well as chapters, right, and having things in the top corners around the numbers. And I carry that through my books. I took over my publishing rights during the writing of my 2nd book, Unfolding Happiness. That first book, Lilith, is, like I said, a novel. And then I went in, I wanted to write self-enrichment, but my publisher said, no, you have to get your creds as a writer first, write a novel. And I thought, oh, Lord, how am I going to do that? I had been writing curriculum for many years, so self-enrichment seemed like a great way to take things I had been teaching and converting them into books and reaching a much broader audience. And then I've always been a poet. I mean, I first started writing, you were talking about 2nd grade, I think, earlier, when you really were getting into it. And it was your 2nd grade teacher that recognized it. It was my 3rd grade teacher for me. And I used to draw in the margins of my papers that I would hand in, my assignments. And she never got angry or tried to squelch that. I was inspired by Mad Magazine. I loved Spy versus Spy, and my brother, who was older, was allowed to have that magazine, so I would snatch them when nobody was looking, or he was done with them, or at least taking a break on a particular issue. And I just thought those were really cool. What a great idea. And notebook paper had a great margin. Why not, right? Yeah, so I had ongoing stories going on the sides of my homework assignments, and I definitely see in Cupid is a Bastard, my newest book, how I let that come back into being because of the way I've got like little quotes and artwork running around the different pages. Right.
Interesting. Me and a friend, whenever we wrote back and forth to each other, we'd use notebook paper. And what we would do is we always listened to the radio, of course, because we were teenagers, and we would actually jot down what song was playing in the margins of our letters. And we wrote our letters backwards so that we had to hold them up to read them because, again, we were teenagers. So, yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Okay, that's some heavy-duty Harriet the Spy stuff.
I'm really good at writing backwards. I can still do that, actually. But, I still have them, too. Okay, so I am curious. I saw on your website just today that you are a certified Zentangle method teacher and trainer. Tell me about that. I'm fascinated with this, with Zentangle.
I got a graduate degree. I got a master's in yoga meditation, and then immediately continued on, which I'm still years later researching and writing about, for a PhD in meditation. And so I was looking for all different methods that could potentially help a person get into a meditative state. And I found out about Zentangle from a local artist who was using a similar type of artwork on jeans. And she had created a bleach solution that would white out blue jeans, but not eat through them, not eat all the way through them, which that's tricky right there, just chemistry. And we had become friends. And she was also doing henna art, which is really, really similar to Zentangle. Oh. You know, the henna decorations on brides in different Asian countries, and just gorgeous, gorgeous, scrolly lace kind of drawing. And I also wanted to learn more about that, and I would hang out in her store, and we would draw. And she had some books about Zentangle. But she wasn't a certified teacher. There were renegade Zentanglers who went and they called it doodle art and all kinds of things. And I researched Zentangle and saw that they were super purists, that they had their own training certification program. And I thought, well, this would actually contribute to my PhD, because anything I could go study with bona fide teachers helped to contribute. And so I went to New England, where they were, and in Rhode Island, and took their certification course, which was a blast, and just so much fun. Unbelievable. Even back then, I was in the 27th certification class. I think they're well into the hundreds because they've gone international. And it was really great. And I've also been back to reunion courses that they do. It's just super fun. And also a great art, because it's a travel art, because it can fit in your pocket. And it's so, and you know, at the time I was still traveling, and it's really fun. I took it with me one time. Well, I take it pretty much anywhere, because, you know, it fits in a backpack or even a pocket pretty easily, depending on the size of your pockets. And I've actually calmed down teenagers and younger kids with it while traveling, and parents are very, very grateful for that. The materials aren't that expensive, so it makes a really great giveaway gift, you know, in that situation. And it's been a really wonderful tool. So it is kind of like henna, kind of like doodling, and some of it did find its way into the pages of not just this book, but also my third book, The Wizard and the Wrench, which is all poetry and art and photography. So, it's a fantastic tool. And I was teaching it locally before 2020. I may do some online, but there's lots and lots of teachers who do this around the world and virtually now. I even see free classes, so go try it. It's a great art form, and you know, you could do it in your journal. I started in my journal before I got their bona fide Zentangle tools. They have paper. A couple of the members of the family are graduates of Rhode Island School of Design, known as RISD, so really excellent materials and teaching tools. It's really worth it if it's something you might like. I highly recommend it.
Interesting. I got a couple of books about it. I just haven't had time to look them over yet. But it looks so fun. So relaxation and meditation, huh?
That's what I primarily love about it. I was teaching privately and group classes before we got locked down. And I was doing happy hour classes at a really cool farm-to-table place with a wine bar kind of setup. And it was so much fun. We would all sit at a big long table and draw and have a glass of wine or iced tea and looking out on a gorgeous garden. That was super fun. But I also was using it with students, private students who are on the spectrum, so Asperger's. And one of the issues with people who are experiencing that is calming and getting into the state of meditation, or just getting out of a hyper overdrive ADD situation. And it was amazing how I would witness my students calming down and just being quiet for a long period of time, and also really getting into the art form.
Well, the basic to get started in it, the biggest thing is learning the initial patterns, right?
Well, the thing about Zentangle, there are a few axioms that a few like sutras that define it. One is it's one line at a time. Another is if you can write the letter I, the letter O, the letter C, and the letter S, you can Zentangle. So when it's taught properly, it's not trying to create a big mandala. It's about starting with a shape and then letting that shape expand. So truly, when you're looking at these different patterns, you are starting with a method of how to draw them that's not necessarily what you're thinking when you're looking at them.
An I, an O, a C, and an S.
Yes.
Is that what you said?
Yes. So that's what separates a real Zentangle instructor from somebody who might be learning from renegade books.
Okay. I, O, C. I could do that. Okay.
Of course you can. We've all doodled. We all have also a go-to doodle. If you think back to when you were listening to economics teachers in high school, you probably had a doodle pattern.
What about helping people that are starting to have dementia? Would it be beneficial for them?
Yes, and Zentangle also has tools and sets for with like bigger pens, a thicker line pen and a slightly bigger piece of, they call the paper tiles because they are kind of thick and their edging is really beautiful. And so it just depends, but absolutely, when you take the instructor program, you do learn methods for teaching people with different challenges.
Okay. I was thinking about
it's worth a try. It's just that it just depends if the person would be interested in it. I think if they were interested in art when they were younger, it might help. As a musician, I played music in daycare centers for people with dementia with a friend of mine who was a flautist. And we did discover that the combination of drums, not a big drum kit, but maybe a mellow indigenous drum and flute together were pretty amazing for helping people to kind of return for a bit and be cognitive.
Okay. Well, the person that I was thinking about that I thought this would benefit was very into art when they were younger and all through their teens and early 20s and all that. So, and I was just thinking that it would work a different part of their brain that isn't getting, they haven't done anything creative in years. Mm-hmm. And I was just thinking as far as the whole dementia thing, it might really help to start using the creative side again. So, okay.
I would, give it a try. Why not?
That's what I was thinking.
Definitely.
And like I said, it just looks fun.
It is fun. I'm into fun, obviously, Zentangle, roller skating, music, dance, art.
Interesting. Okay, so how can listeners find out more about your books and about you and all that kind of stuff?
They can visit my website, so please come visit ambikadevi.com. That's AMBIKADEVI, ambikadevi.com. There, I invite you to join my newsletter list. I only send out one a month. And my community that subscribes gets together with me once a month on the second Thursday evening of the month, East Coast time, for either a movie and a discussion or sometimes a live presentation by a guest, sometimes a combination. Last month, we watched a documentary that a dear friend of mine from the Hopi tribe, who is a PhD working on indigenous growing techniques to help our planet survive. We watched a documentary that he was involved in, and then he came for Q&A, which was a great experience. This month, on the second Thursday, which is the 11th, I will be the guest speaker. I don't usually do it. I usually MC it, but people have been asking me to please talk about holistic health. I think it's the state of the world inspiring. So I will be presenting about that. I don't know if our show will be out before that, but second Thursday of every month is a great opportunity. Oh, excellent, excellent. So be sure to go to ambikadevi.com, AMBIKADEVI.com, and look around. You'll see my books. We are moving all of my astrology and my blog over there. So we are expanding the site, bringing together a lot of other sites that had been floating around in cyberspace.
It gets like that. There's stuff everywhere.
Well, it depends. Years ago I had one big site, and everybody said, no, pick a lane. You have to have multiple sites. I tried that. It drove me nuts.
Oh, yeah.
Same with social media. So on social media, I'm Ambika Devi 1008. But all the social links are going to be linked from my website. So just go there first.
Yeah.
Easier.
That's so much easier. So much easier.
Yes.
Yep. Definitely. All right. Well, thank you very much. It was very interesting, and it would be interesting to talk to you. And I'm so excited that you did Zentangle. I've been dying to talk to somebody about that.
Wow, that's awesome. So cool that you found that this morning.
I did. I was looking down and went, oh, Zentangle.
Well, there's Zentangle in The Wizard and the Wrench, my third book, and there's also Zentangle in Cupid is a Bastard.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm sitting here and looking at my books right now. So.
All right. I'll look forward to seeing some of your artwork.
Yeah. Okay. Not to that point yet, but.
Well, no. Here's the thing. It's really the process of drawing it. It has nothing to do with the finished product, but you're going to be amazed at how cool they come out right from the beginning. Really.
Yeah. Yep.
Just get into the process. And that's the same with writing, of course.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it improves over time. So it's enjoying the process for it too. So, all right. Well, I'll have all of our links and all that good info on the website, and it'll be on my website, folks, and the replay will also be there. And thank you very much for being here. And listeners,
thank you.
Listeners, I'll be with you next time on Ready for Love Radio.